Dear students, we are in the third paragraph of Joseph Addison's essay Meditations in Westminster Abbey. After having thus surveyed this great magazine of mortality as it were in lumps, in lump means something, lump is a mass of irregular shape. So he does not have a definite plan, but as things come by, he is trying to explain them for us. And this great magazine of mortality, great magazine of mortality is after death, mortal, so this refers to death, and magazine, because so many tombstones are there which have been displayed. So this graveyard has become a great magazine of mortality, and so he is examining it more particularly by the account with description, which I found on several of the monuments. So he found descriptions on several means many of the monuments. Monuments are the memorials. You can say tombstones are erected in the memories of the dead people, so they are monuments, which are raised in every quarter of the ancient fabric. Fabric is construction and ancient means old. So there are some memorials here in this graveyard. Some of them were covered with extravagant epitaph. Epitaph is a type of poem or description which is written on the tombstone. So extravagant means very fabulous and in very gorgeous language, which is far from reality. So these epitaphs are highly bombastic, very unreliable, that if it were possible for the dead person to be acquainted with them. So if these epitaphs, these extravagant epitaphs, if they come to the notice of the dead person, he would blush at the praises. So he will definitely feel ashamed of himself, because these praises are too much, which his friends have bestowed means conferred or given upon him, but they are far from reality. There are others so excessively modest, and there are tombstones, memorials, which are very modest, that they deliver the character of the person. I mean, they describe the personality, but they describe this personality in Greek or Hebrew. I mean, in foreign languages, because in England it must be written in English so that a lot of people can read it, but because they are written in Greek or Hebrew, which was a mark of respect definitely, but then fewer people can read it, and by that means are not understood once in a 12-month. And so these tombstones are read, these epitaphs are read very rarely, because few people know Greek or Hebrew, and therefore they are meaningless. In the poetical quarter, I found there were poets who had no monuments. So there was a section of the graveyard which was meant for poets, but the people who were buried there, they were in reality no poets. So they did not have any monuments. There were poets who had no monuments, means in reality who were great poets. I mean, it is natural that they died poor, and therefore they did not have any monuments, any memorials, and monuments which had no poets. And if there were monuments, then the dead persons were not really poets. So this is again very, you can say, very ironical. I observed indeed that the present war had filled the church with many of these uninhabited monuments. So some of the monuments are, uninhabited because nobody lives therein. Means the grave is empty. There is no dead body inside, because these dead people had died elsewhere, and their bodies could not be brought here, and so they are erected only as a memorial, and there are no real dead bodies in the grave, which had been erected to the memory of persons whose bodies were perhaps buried in the plains of Blenheim or in the bosom of the ocean. These people had been killed in a war, and so only empty memorials were erected on that. I go to the fourth paragraph of the essay. I could not but be very much delighted with several modern epitaphs, which are written with great elegance of expression and justness of thought. So he says, I was very much delighted. The essayist was very much delighted because some of the modern epitaphs which had been inscribed on the tombstones, they were really in great language, very elegant, means very decent expression, and the thought was also balanced, means they were not extravagant, and therefore do honor to the living as well as to the dead. So the relatives of the dead person are also, sober people, and anybody who goes through the epitaph will say that yes, this is very just, very appropriate. As a foreigner is very apt. Apt means it is very likely, it's very possible to conceive an idea of the ignorance or the politeness of a nation from the turn of their public monuments and inscriptions. Because when the foreigners come to our country, they will make an estimation of the country's nature on the basis of their monuments and the epitaphs which have been inscribed there. They should be submitted to the perusal of men of learning and genius. So the epitaphs, if they are written, then they should be examined or scrutinized by men of learning and genius before they are put to execution. So before they are put on the tombstones, they must be given sufficient thought. They must be thoughtful. They should not be extravagant, because if we put up extravagant monuments, extravagant epitaphs, then they will not bring any honor to our country. Sir Cloudesley Shovel's monument has very often given me great offense. So Sir Cloudesley Shovel was a great admiral of great ability, and his monument has displeased the essayist. Why? I read. Instead of the brave, rough English admiral, which was the distinguishing character of that plain gallant man, gallant is brave man, he is presented on this tomb by the figure of a beau. Beau is a fashionable person. So rather than representing Sir Cloudesley Shovel as a brave and tough fighter, admiral, an officer of the navy, he is represented as a fashionable gentleman. So this is not fair to his character, dressed in a long periwig and reposing himself upon velvet cushions and a canopy of state. Canopy is cover, or you can say something covering that place like a hood. So, but that was not befitting the honor of a soldier. So the essayist was greatly displeased with that. I continue reading. The inscription is answerable to the monument. This particular sentence is very often asked for explanation. The inscription is answerable to the monument, because monument is built on the graveyard of a dead person. And if you inscribe something extravagant on that monument, then that person becomes laughing stock. And so you are not doing justice to the dead person. For instead of celebrating the many remarkable actions he had performed in the service of his country, it acquaints means introduces us to only the manner of his death. So it is not the manner of death, but it is the work, it is the service which he has rendered to his country that should be displayed on the monument of the great personalities who have done service to the country, in which it was impossible for him to reap any honor. And so, if that person is depicted in a very fashionable manner, in a lavish manner, it is not justice to a great personality. The Dutch means the people of Holland, whom we are apt to despise for want of genius. So he says the English people don't like the Dutch people because they are very insipid people, show an infinitely greater taste of antiquity and politeness in their buildings and works of this nature. So he says the Dutch people are generally hated by the English people because the English people think that the Dutch people are very dull, they are not very genius, they are not talented. But the Dutch people show great taste of antiquity. Antiquity means old things, and politeness in their buildings and works of this nature means monuments. Then what we meet within those of our country, our own country. But in England, the monuments or the epitaphs are not very just. The monuments of their admirals which have been erected at the public expense represent them like themselves. Means if there are war heroes or if there are soldiers, then they are represented like soldiers and are adorned with rostal crowns. Rostal crowns are the ones that are given to the war heroes on their victory, and naval ornaments. Ornaments are the medals and other things which they get with beautiful festoons of seaweed, shells, and corals. So these are the things from the sea, and so they are decorated with, appropriate medals and this type of corals and shells which are found in the oceans. So this makes the monument realistic. Yes, friends, I hope I must stop there, and you should wait for the third lecture to continue. Till then, goodbye.